This episode is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 seller of games and gaming accessories. And GatheringMagic.com, the #1 resource for Magic the Gathering news and articles.
I'm Devon Rule of the Commander Rules Committee, and this is my Oros the Avenger equipment deck. So people often ask how to beat slower ramp and control decks in Commander, because they can be very powerful in the late game. They're often looking for answers like land disruption or hand disruption or some way of stopping their strategy, when really, often the best way of doing this is to just start attacking them and put on pressure. This is one of my favorite decks for this purpose, because it allows you to just start getting in there early and keep threatening damage, infect, card advantage, and really forcing people to respond to your plan on your terms rather than sitting around. It's really hard to take turns off casting explosive vegetation or concentrate when someone's hitting you with a sword. The general is Oros the Avenger. His ability is when he hits someone, he can deal damage to non-white creatures. He is not terribly central to the deck, but when you're running a whole bunch of equipment, it is nice to have a big dragon to put it on when you run out of other threats. The deck runs a moderate basic count, 6 plains, 5 swamps, and 4 mountains, just a little bit reflective of the actual color balance in the deck. Number of dual lands, mostly just the basics here, some filters, command tower, various fetches and shock lands. I'm a big fan of the bounce lands. Almost all of my 3-color decks run all 3 of them. Just the fact that they are a land that basically says draw a card on them outweighs a lot of the disadvantages people like to complain about, in my opinion. Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion, is a very strong card in this deck. Since you're getting in there with a sword, you can often spend some extra mana to go double on it, especially if it's a Sword of Feast and Famine, where it's going to be paying you right back for the mana you're putting into your Sunhome. Deck runs a couple of man lands, just you have Wrath Resilient dudes you can put your equipment on. This one's nice just because it's a dual land, a little expensive to activate, but fixes your mana and can get in there for damage if someone leaves their shields down. Inkmoth Nexus is a far scarier one. This one can often come out of nowhere to one-shot people if you just throw a couple items on it. Buried Ruin is useful in this deck for grabbing back equipment or other artifacts out of your graveyard. Usual stuff. Mistveil Plains is of particular interest to this deck. It's awesome that white has a number of ways to fetch plains. You can grab it off your fetch lands, your core outfitters, even Tithe. And this is great because the deck runs a lot of equipment tutors. You can put back dead equipment if you need to search it out. And especially for Sunforger, one of my favorite cards, which I'll talk more about later. Getting past that, there's just some of the general mana fixing and card draw that I run in a lot of decks. Land Tax is great. Expedition Map I run in almost everything. Soul Ring, obviously. Wafers, Bauble. Armillary Sphere, my love for the card is widely recorded. Darksteel Ingot. Phyrexian Arena, great card for almost any black deck. The deck actually runs very few sweepers. It is only a Hallowed Burial and an Austere Command. Your game plan is very proactive, so you're not running as many defensive options, but it is still nice to have just a couple reset buttons for when games start going awry. Little value dudes who grab lands or draw cards are great for putting equipment on. Knight of the White Orchid can fetch the aforementioned Mistveil Plains. Since you're not playing green, you'll generally be behind someone on lands, and so this guy is pretty consistently able to go get a land. Pilgrim's Eye, in addition to just being a great little guy who can evade, he can chump block and gets you a land, this for me is the absolute best type of political card, where it's not trying to do anything serious, but when you play a Pilgrim's Eye, 5/5 dragons are just going to look elsewhere. You don't have to invest anything in it, no one's feeling like you're a threat, but you're just shutting down threats, and even better, encouraging them to attack elsewhere. So I love this type of card in general. Kor Cartographer, great little guy, doesn't see much play. Solemn Simulacrum does see a lot of play. Graveborn Muse, Phyrexian Arena who can carry a sword, always nice. So I've mentioned the swords a couple of times. The deck does run all 5. Sword of Fire and Ice is probably the best in this deck, just because it puts some nice card advantage pressure on people while you're beating down. But do run all 5 of them. Sword of Body and Mind is probably the weakest. I've still definitely had many times when I want it, either for the specific combination of protections, or for having wolves around to skull clamp or feed to someone's Thraxamundar. Just the worst of the 5 swords is still a very good card, and I've killed people with Mill on this one. The deck's actually very capable of killing people with general damage, infect damage, or normal damage, and occasionally gets there with Mill as well. Swords are obviously great with double strike, so the deck runs a lot of cheap little double strikers. Kor Duelist is a nice 1-drop, Boros Swiftblade, Skyhunter Skirmisher, flying and double strike, Mirran Crusader, obviously an amazing double striker, and then Phyrexian Crusader, who's another very scary infect dude who dangerous guy to have a sword on. Serra Ascendant, actually a card I think is a little overrated in general, but I like it a lot in this deck, just because even when you draw him in the late game, 1/1 flying, or a 1/1 lifelink can still be pretty relevant picking up a sword, and if you give him enough power, he can heal with equipment, you can get back to that 30 life range, where he starts being a real threat again. The deck's very equipment heavy, it runs a lot of ways to tutor them out. I don't like very consistent tutor strategies. I actually really love narrow toolboxy tutor strategies, just because it allows you to create such a distinct deck building experience. Like, I've always been a fan of Ranger of Eos and Stoneforge Mystic, and just cards in that vein that don't increase the consistency too much, but allow a deck to have a really distinct feel. So we're running Enlightened Tutor, Steel Shaper's Gift, Pure Steel Paladin, just another great equipment synergy card who cantrips your equipment and lets you move it around for free, which can be very powerful. Stoneforge Mystic, obviously. Grand Abolisher, not directly an equipment synergy card, but very good because you're often trying to set up big turns where you're suiting up your general or an infect guy for lethal with 4 different things and really don't want to get blown out by a removal spell, or relying on your Sun Forger to not die to a major attack next turn. And this guy can just be really good for ensuring that everything goes according to plan. Demonic Tutor, just a great way to go find what you need at the moment. Remember the Fallen, gets back a sword and a dude to carry it. Tajnar Swordsmith, a little inefficient, but he's a body that can go search out equipment. He's definitely better at getting the cheaper equipment like Skull Clamp or Basilisk Collar. Sanctum Gargoyle, another guy who grabs an equipment back from your yard. Also, it can be nice that he is an artifact himself, ties into a couple of other synergies within the deck. Beacon of Unrest can get back guys or equipment, very nice. Stonehewer Giant, obviously a house. If you ever played against this guy, you know that you are not supposed to let him live and untap ever. Sun Titan, this deck's curve is relatively low for one of my multiplayer decks. I believe there's only 3 6-cost cards in the deck, plus the general, and nothing at 7 or above. Sun Titan is great. He gets back Sunforger, swords, little equipment guys, everything. Godo's one of the other expensive guys in the deck, gets in double attack phases and tutors and equipment immediately into play. It's especially, one cute little synergy is that, well, he normally only allows you to attack twice with him in Samurai. If you've got anything with Vigilance, say something that happens to be wearing a Batter Skull, he actually allows that to attack twice as well. So just nice little synergy to know there. Sunforger I've already mentioned, but it is definitely one of the key components of the deck. You often find yourself kind of transitioning from an early beatdown plan to once the field starts to thin out and there's fewer opponents with fewer resources, Sunforger is often kind of your de facto game plan. I mentioned I love Narrow Tutors. It's just this really fun toolbox card to me that really allows you to build your deck in a different way and have a unique experience with it. So the Sunforger package is actually quite extensive. It's I believe upward around 15 cards. We've got Tithe, which is just a cute little value thing, but one of the nice things about this is it can get the Mistveil Plains I mentioned earlier, which is a great thing to have in play with a Sunforger to allow you to recur your fogs or removal spells, or just put something on the bottom and grab it immediately. Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile, which can come up later apparently, are just some great baseline removal spells. Hide and Seek is cute. It can tuck artifacts and enchantments, including any generals who happen to be an artifact. Seek is, it's just kind of nice to have a life gain spell, and in Commander, it's frequently just sometimes you need to go pull out a time stretch out of someone's deck and gain 10. So it's nice to have that in your toolbox. Return to Dust, card I love. Great, just card advantage, solid answer to artifacts and enchantments. Ghostway, cute little flexible trick. You may have seen that the deck has quite a few enters the battlefield abilities, so Ghostway can frequently give you a number of triggers, or just flicker your team in response to a wrath. Unmake, great removal spell to search out, exile a guy with no drawback. Wild Ricochet is a personal favorite of mine. It is way more fun than a counter spell, and I mean, it's already great in response to just a Terminate, but when you Wild Ricochet a Violent Ultimatum or Time Stretch, you are having a good day. Terminate, another just good baseline removal spell. Condemn, another card which I think is a little overrated, but I like in this context just because you can search it out. In general, I really like flexible removal spells that can do what you need to, because you're very sad staring down a Consecrated Sphinx with a Condemn in your hand. But I actually tend to think that people often, when building Sunforger packages, overvalue flexibility, just because you don't want to go for something... Since you have the flexibility to search out whatever you want, you don't want to go for something high-risk like Chaos Warp or Oblation. You can instead get very narrow but very powerful situational cards like Condemn. Mortify, just another good solid gold removal spell, flexible for killing artifacts or enchantments. Path to Exile, another good one that's hard to argue with. Wrecking Ball, having the ability to kill lands in your Sunforger package is very useful when looking at Gaia's Cradles and Mazes of Ith and the like. Wind Shards, this one's a little cute, but I like it. It's fun Sunforger target mainly because it's very difficult to counterspell. Since you're often putting multiple copies on this stack, and great for dealing with hard-to-answer guys like a heavily suited-up Uriel the Miststalker. Dawn Charm, this is primarily a fog effect, just so we have a Sunforgeable deal no damage this combat step that we can even recur if necessary, but it has some other modes that are useful. I've certainly won games by using this to counter a fireball someone aimed at my face. Orm's Thunder, great little 2-for-1, blows up an artifact or an enchantment, and can take out a creature along with it if you kick it. Skull Clamp is one of our more powerful engines we can threaten here. We've got a number of cards that synergize with it very strongly. Obviously, you can just throw it on any guy and get some nice value if your opponent's forced to remove it, but it is especially scary with things like Reassembling Skeleton, with Bitter Blossom, or with Bloodghast. Alright, so lastly, just kind of running through the other equipment that made the cut here. Loxodon Warhammer, just a very solid life gain, turn any dude into a threat. Even just throwing this on like a 1/1 double striker gives you a pretty reasonable threat to claw your way back into the game. Batterskull, I mentioned earlier, great that it comes with a body, so you can turn any of your equipment tutors into something that's also coming with a guy to suit up, and then just a great rate of suiting up your general with lifelink or vigilance or whatever you want to do. Fire Shrieker, one of the more edge case, probably one that is tutored for more rarely, but is often useful for striking killing blows, just turning your Oros or one of your infect guys into enough to finish someone off this turn. Quiet as Spike, this is probably one of the more questionable choices in the deck. It's more just kind of a fun thing to threaten people with early, but it is one of the cards I'm more likely to cut the next time awesome equipment catches my eye. You need to make sure you're not getting the equipment count too high, just because you find yourselves with a bunch of swords and no one to carry them. Swiftfoot Boots, it is amazing how much better this card is in the deck than Lightning Greaves. Just being able to suit your guy up to protect him and then invest mana in putting equipment on him can often be the difference between victory and defeat. I actually took out Lightning Greaves just because there's enough tutoring that I don't really need things serving the same purpose. GT, not quite as strong in Commander as in other formats, but still very solid, especially with our suite of double strikers. And finally, Basilisk Color, which is just a great little card, Death Touch, Lifelink, good on pretty much anything, very affordable, and has particularly great synergy with Oros, just because it turns his 3 damage to all non-white creatures into both death-touching damage that kills large guys, and a huge amount of health if you connect when there's a full board. I've definitely seen someone unwittingly play out an Avenger of Zendikar when I respond with Basilisk Collar and gain several hundred life. Thanks for watching CMDR Decks. Please subscribe and favorite.